this side of the camera. It's kind of awkward, you know, I gotta like check my eyebrows. They're perfect. So today we've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is there's a new car outside. The bad news is it's a little bit clapped, but it has a good story. So let's go ahead and check it out and see what kind of trouble we can get into today. I'm a rock star with a I'm a hot shot with a flame for the team. Now that everything is in and McDonald's is for free now. I'm a pop up in these cars and these things I don't got now. I don't know the words, but this song is fucking fire. Oh, cool. I don't know if I put it in a thumbnail, but this ought to give you a pretty good indication of what's outside. Buddy, I need you to kind of get out of the way. Don't worry, Froggy has not been replaced. These are some dogs I'm sitting for the holidays, because you guys know I don't really celebrate holidays. This is Hubert. You guys are not coming with me, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. And don't judge, we were working on another car, and this car makes a perfect shelf. But let's see. And there she is, a CYM. I think this is a 1993 Mazda RX-7. It's not stock. It's been through some things, but that's okay. We're gonna talk about this car in just a moment, but first thing we're gonna do is try to get a cold start. The idle's like pretty stable. There was no high idle whenever we first started. I don't know if that's something that was tuned in. Like there's a lot we'll have to look into, but so far everything looks pretty good, or as good as it can look. Once you guys find out like the full story on this thing is going to be really disappointing, but before we go for a ride, we have to do a couple things at least, and that is one, maybe actually remove this. No, I guess the tape's pretty good on this side. You know what? We're just gonna go send it. It should be fine. We're not going far. We're not going fast. We're just, boy. Just like all RX-7s, you gotta do the thing where you gotta slam the door. So, yeah. Oh wow, wow, wow. The clutch is the pedal's very much spongy. It's not good, but we're up to operating, we're up to op temp. Let's take this thing to get some quick photos. This actually may be a factory clutch. Actually, I should probably talk louder. This thing is so loud. It's Thanksgiving Day. If you're my neighbors, I'm sorry, but that's okay. Probably either this episode, depending on how long this thing goes, either this episode or the next episode, we'll start changing the exhaust out. We will more than likely go with something from Apex, just a little bit quieter, but until we get there, I do have our old Racing Beat that was actually pretty quiet, so we'll try to put that on there. I hope this audio comes out good because I don't have a lapel mic or the money for any of that. But overall, the car drives pretty smooth. The engine sounds and feels pretty healthy. It took a little while to turn over, but I think that's, you know, it's been sitting, you know, in the front yard for a little bit, so it could have something to do with that. But okay, the story on this car, hopefully we can kind of make it to the end. I'm going to be pretty vague because, you know, I don't want to get anybody into any trouble or anything like that. But basically, my boy bought this car. This was his dream car. It's a CYM competition yellow mica car. We ended up getting orders overseas, you know, had to go do that whole thing. And he decided to spend more than the car was worth on making this car absolutely perfect. At the time, I wasn't really concerned with rotary cars, so I didn't really care or have any opinion one way or the other on what it takes to get these cars, you know, up to snuff. But he had been watching these YouTubers, and to him, that actually sounds good. To him, the only option was dropping it off to these guys. He had seen them on YouTube. They had done great work doing like big things with the rotary community. So I was just like, yeah, okay, you know, I'm on board. If you have any questions or something doesn't seem right, oh, this is a terrible mount, or something just seems a little bit off, you could just ask me and I will do my best to guide you, okay? So the guys had the car for a while, and when I say a while, I mean not months or anything, but they had it for years. I want to say it was about 3 years, and I want to say this coolant temp may be creeping, I don't know. So they had the car for years, and every time he would give us an update on, yeah, this coolant temp gauge is definitely creeping. We've only been driving for about 3 minutes, and we're already getting kind of hot, so we're just going to go ahead and idle it. Yeah, we'll shut it off and just kind of let it cruise, get some airflow through it. I can continue the story though while we, you know, let it cool down and figure out what's going on. We'll turn the fans on though, which, interesting, I don't hear any fans. Oh, I do hear fans, just not very loud. Okay. Probably not the best idea considering how long it took to start because of how the battery was sounding a little bit weak, but I could walk home from here. It's not a big deal. Anyway, these gentlemen had this car. Oh, it's windy out. So these guys had this car for maybe So as soon as we stopped, the coolant temp went right back to normal, which is odd. So it could be an airflow problem. To figure that out, you know what, we'll just start the car and see if it continues to creep. All right, so we'll just leave it there and give this thing, we'll let it idle and see what's going on. If it doesn't get hot, then I don't know, it may be like a, no, that's going up, nah. Okay, this is just not gonna work. That's the first thing we're gonna have to look into is what's going on with this coolant temperature, but I forgot where we were in the story. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so these guys had the car for like 3 years or something, and I remember I was just very like skeptical. Every time something would happen, or every time he'd get a new invoice or something like that, me and the other guys would be like, dog, that doesn't sound right. But he had the utmost faith and confidence in these guys because, of course, he had seen them and had been following them, you know, for a while on YouTube. At this time, they were starting to, you know, get collabs with bigger channels too, and we were all pretty excited about it. So because we were so hyped up for this build, I remember we used to all like watch those guys' channel in my room, and then one day we realized they were moving from California over to Virginia, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of strange. Hey, I almost said his name. It's like, hey man, your car should be ready, right? He hits him up, doesn't get a response. By the time he does get a response, there's, you know, excuses that to me, I'm just like, brother, it's been a long time. Like, you should have your car back. He doesn't end up getting his car back. The guys move his car across the country, like clearly across the country, bill him for it. And at this point, have you seen the show like Intervention? It kind of felt like that. It's like, hey man, we need to have a conversation, because at this point, this car probably could have been built by us amateur level people in the garage. Granted, we don't have our powers combined on rotary issues are probably less than what those guys have forgotten. So not throwing any shade or saying they don't know what they're doing. It's just, I think their priorities changed, and, you know, fame became more important than, you know, their lower end, you know, customers, which I wouldn't even say lower end, because he put a lot of money into this car. All that's been done. Hold on, let me turn these fans off. So he ends up continuing to pay, but now his mindset has kind of changed. His mindset is more along the lines of, hey, what's going on with my car? Can I get it back? And he just keeps running into these issues. They keep giving him deadlines, missing the deadline. So finally, I'm just like, at this point, Iori has her RX-7, and man, once you drive them, you're like, hey, this car is really good. So, before I was a little bit against them, I'm like, okay, I would like to have one. How about this? We just straight trade. I'll take, you can take my Corvette, and I will take the RX-7 the way it sits. We'll just do it like that. He was reluctant, but I flew to the East Coast, drove a few hours to this location, and I didn't tell them I was coming or anything like that, but I saw the car and I was flabbergasted. So the car was sitting there behind some glass in their shop, and there was just stuff. It was filled to the interior with like gross parts, like used engine parts, and there were just boxes of other people's stuff kind of stacked on top of it. I go to the lobby and I'm ignored for a pretty long time, which, you know, I'm used to it. So I'm sitting there ignored for a while, and finally someone talks to me. I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm here to check that car out. They refuse to like even let me near the car. I'm like, no, I don't want to do anything. I just want to walk around the exterior of it. They're just like, no, you can't do that. I tell them, hey, I know the owner. Here's his information. This is the paper that says he's cool with it. They weren't having it. So they tell me to come back in a couple weeks. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'll come back. I come back and everything that was in the car is now like semi-installed, you know, like mocked up, like in the engine bay. I'm like, okay, cool. And I was videoing for my friend, because that first showing, when I first showed up, and they were in there working on other people's cars, other famous people's cars, it was really bad. It was actually really heartbreaking. So at this point, I'm like, you know, I'm gonna find a way to video so that he can, you know, get some of it. I may or may not post some of the video. It depends, because I know he may be in a legal battle with them right now. I don't know the details, but I think he's just trying to get his money back. But I send him some videos. I'm like, hey man, this is the state of your car. And he is shocked, because although me and the other boys have been telling him for a while, like, hey man, it sounds like you're getting drugged, he denied it. He kept the utmost faith and confidence in these guys. Like, that's the bad thing about YouTube, is you want to believe everyone that you see on YouTube is a good person, and sometimes they may be, but their business practices aren't the best, you know. So at this point, he's being a little bit more aggressive with them, you know, making demands. We tell him you should probably see an attorney, because they weren't willing to give the car back or any of the money back or any of the parts back, which by law they were required to do. And after a lot of back and forth, a lot of crap, they ended up delivering a clapped CYM. So that's not where we are today. Today we're at the point where we tell him, you should probably take it to a different shop, a shop that doesn't have a YouTube channel, a shop who deals primarily in rotaries. Not going to mention them either, but holy crap, they were really good. They got the car running, driving right. They fixed all of the really pertinent issues, like the, hey, you may permanently damage your car if you don't fix these issues, those type of things. And they were more than fair, you know, took pictures, but totally understood them not wanting to get involved in this process. Unfortunately, my friend, where we are in life right now, he didn't really have the willpower, I guess, to continue with the car. So he was about ready to get rid of it. And that's when I just asked him, like, hey, can we give it one last hurrah? Like, bring it on over to my house and we'll see what we can do with this car. And, you know, he thought about it and looked around and he was just like, what's the worst that could happen? So now we have taken delivery of the cursed CYM and we're going to do it. Or I'd say we. Iori, as you guys know, is back in Japan, so this is probably going to be a solo op, but I'm going to do everything I can to get this car roadworthy again, or at least to the point where we could drive it for 3 minutes without, you know, the temperature going pretty high. That being said, I hope you guys are super interested in what's to come. We're going to still do a full walk around overview of this car and definitely get rid of this exhaust. So let's try to turn this thing back on. Hopefully the temperature is down considerably at this point, and we'll pull it in the garage and see what we can see. Okay. Please don't be hot. All right. We know we got like 3 minutes to get back to the house, so let's rip it. Oh, that power steering fluid is probably... So we did not make it very far before that coolant gauge started going up a little bit, but it was like very kind of all over the place. So I wonder if that's just an issue with the sensor itself. We'll dive into that later. So while we're here, while we're letting it cool down, or what we think is cooling down, we're gonna go over the car here. I mean, it's quiet. I don't have to worry about my neighbors looking at me. So let's kind of go bumper to bumper and talk about what's done to the car. So we've got the hood popped. Let's go ahead and pop the hood, and here we are. So it does have the 13B still, as you could probably hear. It's got this interesting V-mount radiator setup, which I'm not too keen on. It looks like all of the coolant lines, instead of being hoses or hard lines with just like little bolts or little couplers on them, it's got what appears to be like a half-done catch can of some sort. We will figure that out. Looks like that's an IGN-1 kit from Sake Bomb. That's a great kit. We have like weird stuff like butt connectors like that instead of, you know, actually, you know, looming things. And we have what I believe is a massive power steering leak because we got a lot of noise. We have some lines that are like half AN and half just like butted on lines, so worm gear lines. So yeah, let me prop this thing up so we can really go through it. So obviously, a guy like me, this is going to be the priority, is the power plant. This worries me a lot. There's a lot of oil, like dirt. I'm pretty sure that's oil. And I would really like to know where that's coming from, because we have some sort of fluid remnants up here. It looks like whatever, all right. It looks like whatever that banjo bolt there is too, that's leaking as well. Not really proud of the AN work here. I don't know why they would think that was okay. It has some giant ass Garrett turbo, which, I mean, obviously we haven't given the car the beans yet, but I would assume a turbo this big with just a 3-inch probably spools full boost by like 4,500 RPMs, which is respectable, but I think that may mean it's ready for an EFR here pretty soon. In there, they just have like a MAC valve, which I assume is his boost control valve. That's exactly what that is, actually. Just kind of like thugging out in there. So we're gonna have to figure that out. Looks like they just roughly grinded a bracket off right there, which I'm sure I think that was for the air pump. Probably wasn't that important, but come on, man, we gotta clean that up a little bit. Is this methanol? I don't know what that AEM thing is going into the fuel pressure regulator is, but I assume it's methanol injection. I remember he spent a lot of money on this Elite intake manifold, and I think for his goals and what he wanted, it just wasn't really necessary. And I do remember that being a point of contention as far as paying the bill, because they would be like, hey, we're gonna order this, but I don't remember the exact parts, but they'd be like, oh, by the way, we need to order a gasket, so I have to add this on, I have to add this on. It's like, hey, haven't you installed hundreds of these? Shouldn't you know what all you need when you order it in the first place? But that was just us talking. We don't know much else about the car. When you look at the car from the outside, overall, I think it's pretty clean. I'm not a big fan of the V-mounts, but this one looks pretty good. There's no ducting on the sides, which that could be our problem, because it was really only overheating whenever we started moving. Also, he's got dual oil cooler upgrades, which is pretty baller. But the paint looks amazing. Still on stock wheels, which I think he should definitely go with something he likes, but I would, if I had a yellow one, I'd probably do Advans and then put the little Advan little sticker there. The paint has seen better days, but I do think this is something we could easily work with and get looking a little bit better. This fart can, I don't really know anything about the exhaust actually, so we'll look back. It looks like it was made for the car. Oh, it's a Greddy. It's I hope you can see that. It's a Greddy exhaust. And yeah, it's just a big ass, you know, straight through exhaust, which isn't really our favorite, but that's okay. That's okay. What else do we have going on with the car? Overall, the exterior, I'd say, is pretty good, especially considering it had been sitting, you know, just with these boxes on top of it for the longest time. The interior, missing the map lid, but we'll probably 3D print another one. Probably put floor mats in instead of replacing the carpet. Definitely get him a radio or something. Get rid of the Vin Diesel gauges, maybe for Zaytronics tweaker kit, and maybe for his boost gauge, also Zaytronics. Just mount it somewhere a little bit more or less inconspicuous, I don't know. This was a huge problem for me. So he had the bins, and they ended up cutting out the bottoms to fit a battery in there. But it wasn't that they just put a battery in the bins. It's just the shoddy work on the ground, and that just doesn't look great. And then nothing's like insulated, and somehow fluid is getting in here. And this gave me the most anxiety, but I think it'll be a pretty quick, easy fix. Actually, I think that should be the first thing we do, but I want to move it from the bins and put it in the back and kind of build a shroud for it. So let's... So yes, he had methanol, but the car had sat for so long that the actual methanol tank started to crack because it was just sitting there. And this was their mounting solution. The YouTubers, of course, they just drilled it through the strut bar, but I guess forgot to put a nut, or the nut grinded off. And it looks like it wasn't their first try. They tried again, so they've kind of destroyed his strut bar, but luckily there's some cool aftermarket ones. So we're gonna figure that out. And because it's mounted there, it's gonna be kind of hard to get to his spare, which hopefully he never needs. Oh no, I guess they did it in a way that makes sense, but we'll clean this out. Oh, looks like he has the fuel pump wiring upgrade, which is amazing. So yeah, the plan now is, or initially is, to attack the methanol and the battery first, just to get that all safe. Once that's safe and we get consistent voltage, because maybe that could be what the key issue is, we can start on the car, or start on the stuff that's under the hood. But of course, we got to figure out what's causing it to drive for 3 minutes and get hot to begin with. So yeah, I got a lot of work ahead of me. I wish Yori-chan was here to help out, but I understand that she's not. But no worries, guys. She will be back. And I will be flying to Japan to see her pretty soon. So I'm really excited for those vlogs. And I hope you guys are too, because she's doing a lot right now. So if you have appreciated me talking this whole time, sorry we didn't get to rip or do anything cool. If you've appreciated me talking and you look forward to this build, or even have some recommendations or anything to add, please add to the comments, because I'm not one of those guys that knows everything. In fact, I know very little. So just let me know in the comments and we'll go through this together. Anyway, thanks for coming through. Thanks for clicking. Thanks for supporting, even though I'm not a cute little Asian girl. It means a lot. Mata ne. Rockstar with the fans on the fleek, got the whole team G's and she all up on me now.